Hello, welcome back to our bonus episode. We are going into the grapefruit, back into the pink. This is part 2 of our exploration of what really happened in the grapefruit. There are spoilers here for Stephen King's Dark Tower series as a whole, and for Wizard and Glass specifically. So if you have not read the whole Dark Tower series, this is not for you. Turn it off, come back once you have. Everybody else, welcome back. We're assuming you watched part 1 of this series. Before we get into that, let me tell you, my name is Michelle McHugh and I'm your host. This is Dark Tower YouTube, where we're taking a deep psychological dive into the magic, the mystery, and the metaphysics of Stephen King's magnum opus, The Dark Tower. It's good to be back with part 2 of the series. I'm back here with Ash. Ash, how are you today? And do you want to catch us up on what we talked about last time and where we're picking up now?
Yeah, I am doing well. I'm excited for part 2. So in the first part, we sort of mostly just went over what we know about the turtle, because Roland, in this, in the vision that he has in the grapefruit, is like certain that this is the voice of the turtle. But from what we kind of have seen, this turtle is not acting like the way that we are told in like the nursery rhymes from Midworld, as well as Stephen King's It. So we also broke that down when the turtle appears and speaks with Bill. And then in this video, we're just gonna keep moving forward with that.
Yeah, so basically in book 4, Wizard and Glass, Roland goes into the pink, into the grapefruit, and he has an experience in there. And when you read this for the first time, you're like, oh, that's what happened. But when you read it again and again and again, you start to say, is it? Because this isn't adding up. So that's what we're doing here, is just going through with a fine-tooth comb and saying, what do we know about Roland, the turtle, the man in black? And how do these things interlink? Because the theory is that this is the man in black messing with Roland yet again. And we're going to continue to follow Roland into the pink crystal ball. And we're going to pick up with his vision. I will start. So back in the grapefruit with Roland. He looks and sees a brilliant blue gold glow, piercing the dirty darkness of thunderclap. Before he can do more than register it, he breaks out of the darkness and into the light like something coming out of an egg, a creature at last being born. Light! Let there be light! The voice of the turtle cries, and Roland has to put his hands to his eyes and peek through his fingers to keep from being blinded. Okay, so we're back with Roland. What are we noticing here in this excerpt?
The light, let there be light, is a refrain that we will also see. Chronologically, it's later for Roland, but for the reader, we saw the vision that he's given by the Man in Black at their palaver at the end of Gunslinger, where this happens. So this should, like, for the readers, that should, be something that's like, okay, so this is the same. Even though for Roland, this grapefruit vision is what happened first. So that's an important thing to note, especially because, in a little bit we will break down sort of that vision from their palaver, and look at the similarities.
Yeah, anybody out there, when you were reading Wizard and Glass and you saw that light, let there be light, did you remember that you had read that before? And who said that? It was not the turtle. So we can keep going. Do you want to pick up where we left off?
Sure. Gunslinger, look there. Yes, there it is, a dusty gray-black pillar rearing on the horizon. The Dark Tower, the place where all beams, all lines of force converge. In its spiraling windows, he sees fitful electric blue fire, and hears the cries of all those pent within. He senses both the strength of the place and the wrongness of it. He can feel how it is spooling error across everything, softening the divisions between the worlds, how its potential for mischief is growing stronger, even as disease weakens its truth and coherence, like a body afflicted with cancer. This jutting arm of dark gray stone is the world's great mystery and last awful riddle. It is the tower, the dark tower, rearing to the sky, and as Roland rushes toward it, in the pink storm, he thinks, I will enter you, me and my friends, if Ka wills it so. We will enter you, and we will conquer the wrongness within you. It may be years yet, but I swear, by bird and bear and hare and fish, by all that I love, that... But now the sky fills with flaggy clouds, which flow out of thunderclap, and the world begins to go dark. The blue light from the tower's rising windows shines like mad eyes, and Roland hears thousands of screaming, wailing voices.
The first thing that I notice when we're reading this is how Roland is just buying it.
Mm-hmm.
We know that the pink one, the grapefruit, shows people the worst things possible and then manipulates their view of the world to get them to think evil things or become evil themselves, because it kind of feeds off of that. And I guess we don't know how much Roland actually knows about how this works, like we do as the reader. And so I was going to kind of blame him for a second and say, why is he just buying this? But then I thought, maybe he doesn't actually know. And then I'm going to ask you, like, how much do the his quartet when he's 14, how much do they actually know about how this works? And is he just innocent and naive to be buying what he's seeing?
I believe so. As far as innocence goes, in regard to exactly how the grapefruit works, I believe that they were told or overheard Stephen Deschain say something about a grapefruit, and so they knew that that's what the true gunslingers were looking for, and they were just looking in the wrong place, obviously, because they accidentally sent their sons right into it, you know. But I don't believe that they were told how it works. I believe they know that it's part of Marilyn's rainbow, the wizard's rainbow, and they know that it is bad because of that. I don't think that they necessarily know exactly how it works in terms of the manipulation and the only showing the dark side of things.
Yeah, I think you're right. So I'm going to be a little kinder. I like to be mean to Roland about this one. I'm going to be a little kinder to him because he doesn't super understand how this works, even though we do. But even that alone should be telling the reader, we know that what people see in here is a lens of evil and darkness, and not to just be taken at face value. So we should be questioning that, even if Roland is not.
And
go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, to be fair, Cuthbert and Elaine both knew that it was bad news and shouldn't be played with, and then Roland got it anyway. So, there is a little bit of blame, but I don't think that he knows exactly how it works. He just knew that it was not a great thing.
Yeah, that's right. They were cautious of it, and for good reason. Yeah. The second thing I'm noticing is the thing that catches my ear when I'm reading Wizard and Glass is, I swear, by bird and bear and hare and fish. And that makes me feel like, wow, like we're bringing in this deep love into this situation. And it feels a little like there's a contrast or friction between what's going on in his life with Susan and what's going on in this vision. What do you think about that?
Yeah, so for those who don't remember, that sort of refrain was kind of how they, Susan and Roland talked several times about their love, and the by bird and bear and hare and fish was something that they had said to each other. So for him to bring that into such a dark place and also be using it for violence is very interesting, because that is not, You wouldn't expect that even from Roland, because he is, with Susan, he is so soft and open and like gentle, and we never really see that sort of like viciousness that come out like we do, as he's older and more jaded, I guess. So this is sort of, I feel like, the first time that we really see that flip, and it feels almost like a perversion of their love.
And there is that first streak of kind of intense violence to get what he wants. In that language, that belief, he's thinking, we will enter you.
Yeah.
And we will conquer the wrongness within you. So forced entry, conquering. I mean, that's language of colonization and these kind of different other things. So that's not great. And then to take those ideas about the pledge to Susan and now be pledging it to this dark thing, it makes me feel a little nervous. And as we see, he's like, oh, Susan, who's that? So he has had this flip switched in his brain about everything.
It really is. It's crazy to see, like, before this, the plan was to go back to Susan. Like, that was the plan. The plan was their love and, Ka like a wind kind of thing. If Ka allows, they will be together. And Roland, again, because he doesn't know exactly how the grapefruit works, he assumes that this is like some sort of divine vision, or like semi-divine vision from the turtle, and just throws everything else out because he believes that this is his destiny. And it's very sad to see, like, he's just casting off all of like the goodness that he's found with this girl, knowing that she's pregnant too, and it's just like, she'll find someone else. I gotta go to the tower. And I mean, I guess it's a pretty good example of how corrupting the influence of the grapefruit is.
I agree, and we're going to see that as we continue reading. Before we do, one last thing that kind of catches our readers' eyes, ears, are the flaggy clouds, because that's an adjective I don't know that the only other place I saw it is when King used it back in the Wastelands when he's describing Eddie's dream of the tower. That's the only other place I've seen that adjective, I think, in my whole life. So there's perhaps it's an alert to our reader brain that we should be picking up on. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, flaggy, obviously, especially because it is spelled with 2 G's the way that Randall Flagg's name is spelled. I do think that may have been thrown in as a little hint to us, that the Man in Black might be involved. I think if it were just that word and nothing else, that would be seen as like, okay, that's a reach. But given, everything we know about the turtle and everything we know about the grapefruit, I don't think that it is that far-fetched to say that he might have something to do with this, and King might be hinting at that here. Especially when, in that passage, the world's, like, last awful riddle. We know that this entire series has a lot of riddles in it. I know, like, it's biggest in the Wastelands, but that is a through line throughout the series. This feels like this vision is maybe also a riddle.
We started this book with the showdown of riddles. It's huge. And we're told in the Wastelands through Miss Avery that a good novel contains riddles, and not only riddles, but riddles within riddles, and this kind of thing. So I think that's cool to be like, we have this theory that Randall Flagg is involved, and King could be kind of tipping his hat to us there. Stephen King, what do you think? Are we on to you? All right, anything else from that passage before we continue?
I think we're good. I mean, the only other thing would be, like, we know that, the grapefruit shows us the worst of everything, so maybe maybe we're only seeing the really bad parts of the tower. They're obviously it's not a completely, I don't know, because it is the nexus point of like the everything, you know, because it is where all the beams converge and everything is what we're told. And that seems to be like pretty solid evidence for that in the series. You wouldn't think that it would just be like a solely evil place. So it is interesting. I wonder if this is like a warped vision of the tower that we're seeing as well.
Based on what we know of this crystal ball,
yeah,
it is. King has told the reader again and again throughout this novel how this works, what it shows you, what it means, and how it works on the viewer's mind.
Yeah.
He did that for a reason. And then we're not as the reader going to go into it and just forget all of the rules that he set up. That's crazy.
Yeah.
These apply. Why wouldn't they apply to Roland?
Yeah.
All right. So we're going to continue here. Back into the crystal ball. King writes, "You will kill everything and everyone you love," says the voice of the turtle. And now it is a cruel voice, cruel and hard. And still the tower will be pent shut against you. The gunslinger draws in all his breath and draws together all his force. When he cries his answer to the turtle, he does so for all the generations of his blood. "No, it will not stand. When I come here in my body, it will not stand. I swear on my father's name, it will not stand." "Then die," the voice says, and Roland is hurled at the gray-black stone flank of the tower to be smashed there like a bug against a rock. But before that can happen, Cuthbert and Elaine stood watching Roland with increasing concern. He had the piece of Marilyn's rainbow raised to his face, cupped in his hands as a man might cup a ceremonial goblet before making a toast. The drawstring bag lay crumpled on the dusty toes of his boots. His cheeks and forehead were washed in a pink glow that neither boy liked. It seemed alive somehow and hungry. Then, as Roland's unnaturally pink face contorted like the face of a man who confronts some unimaginable horror, Cuthbert and Elaine lunged forward. It was no longer a question of perhaps destroying him in an effort to save him. If they didn't do something, the glass would kill him as they watched. This is horror.
Yeah.
This is horrific. This is terrifying.
Yeah.
Let's pull this apart a little bit. What's the first thing you would like to talk about there?
Well, the first thing that we get is the turtle saying, "You will kill everything and everyone you love." And it's noted that it is a cruel voice, cruel and hard. So, antithetical to everything we know about the turtle. It's, cruel versus a kind and loving and benevolent being, as well as the fact that the turtle said then die, and then all of a sudden Roland is being thrown at the tower, right? That is this quote-unquote turtle actively interfering. And we know that he never interferes. Even when he saw, the Losers Club being, hunted by this cosmic horror of Pennywise, of it, he basically was like, "Hey, man, you just kind of got to do this for yourself. Like, I think that you can do it if you want to do it, and if you're true to yourself, but otherwise, I can't help you." So not only is he not helping, he's actively trying to harm a boy, because Roland is only 14 here. And again, we know that the turtle loves all the children, and so this is just so completely out of left field, just the opposite of everything we know about him.
His thoughts are slow, but always kind.
Yes.
And that's exactly what we saw from the turtle in it. And
Mm-hmm.
it will also be how we see the turtle Skolpada
Yeah.
acting later in this series. So, no. And then we say, the turtle doesn't intervene. He can't. That's not what he's about.
Yeah.
But could the ball intervene? Could the man in black intervene? And this is right on the toes of that idea of Roland's being hurled and is going to die.
Mm-hmm.
We're told by King through Cuthbert and Elaine that there is a sentience there, that something is going on. What do they say? It seemed alive
and hungry
somehow, and hungry. So that makes sense. That adds up.
Yes.
And we've seen that this is an evil object that's programmed to do evil and cause evil and drain life force.
Yeah.
So that makes total sense as opposed to the turtle doing this.
Mm-hmm. Very much so.
All right, what else in here? I think we kind of covered all of this. Do you think that he would have died in there?
I do. I think that if Cuthbert and Elaine had not intervened, I think that he would have died. I think that it is possible that if he hadn't gone against this voice, and basically said, it's not gonna, it will not stand, I'm coming here, and I'm going to conquer you, I think maybe he might have been able to make it out, ? But after he said that, that was basically, the ball, or the man in black, or whatever is controlling this vision was just well, guess you're gonna die then. So...
Yeah, so the intent is just to get rid of Roland.
Yes.
I agree. I think he would have died had not his friends had some inclination of what this is and what's happening, even though they can't see it themselves.
Mm-hmm.
I think Roland would have died there.
Yeah.
And again, that is not what the turtle is trying to do to little kids.
Yeah. And, we didn't go through all of that in this little passage, but Cuthbert and Elaine, the only reason that they didn't immediately intervene is because they were worried that if he had gone Todash, they don't use that word, but if, astral projecting kind of situation, if Roland was out of his body and they tried to intervene, they might not be able to get him back, his mind. And so that's why they had waited so long. But when they see this, and when they see that this ball is, actively trying to consume him, is what it sounds like they're looking at, that's when they were like, we can't, we're not going to be able to get him back anyway if we don't stop this now. So, the fact that they had to throw all caution to the wind just to keep his body alive even, as well as his mind.
I agree. All right, so he's knocked unconscious, and a few minutes later they rouse him, or he wakes up, and they're like, what happened? What did you see? Do you want to read the next part?
Yes. So King writes, "Much," Roland said. "I saw much, but most of it is already fading out of my mind, the way dreams do when you wake up. What I do remember, I'll tell you as we ride. You must know, because it changes everything. We're going back to Gilead, but not for long." "Where after that?" Elaine asked, mounting. "West, in search of the Dark Tower, if we survive today, that is." A little bit later, he says, "The tower is our Ka, mine especially, but it isn't hers, nor she mine. No more is John Farson our Ka." "There is no tower, Roland," Cuthbert said patiently. "I don't know what you saw in that glass ball, but there is no tower. Well, as a symbol, I suppose, like Arthur's cup or the cross of the man Jesus, but not as a real thing, a real building. It's real, and our fathers know. Beyond the dark land, I can't remember its name now, it's one of the things I've lost. is Endworld, and in Endworld stands the Dark Tower. Its existence is the great secret our fathers keep. It's what has held them together as Ka-Tet across all the years of the world's decline. Inside the ball, I was given a choice: Susan and my life as her husband and father of the child she now carries, or the tower. I choose the tower. I must. Let her live a good life and long with someone else. She will in time. As for me, I choose the tower.
Well, hot damn. I mean, we have the Man in Black trying to get Roland out of his way, out of John Farson's way. And he tried to do that before by goading Roland into an early test of manhood and kind of poking him with a stick and getting him to respond so that he can just not be a problem for anybody anymore. And he failed that time.
Yes.
But he just succeeded in a huge way here.
Yes.
Roland is like, we're going west.
Yeah.
Anytime we're going west in this story,
not good.
West equals bad.
Yeah.
Don't go west. No.
Yeah. West is, not only bad, it's exile. And, that Roland here is exiling himself and his friends, essentially, saying, like, we have to do this, we have to chase this thing. John Farson isn't our Ka. Crazy to say when John Farson is actively destroying what's left of in-world and mid-world. Is actively, spearheading this revolution and destroying the Gunslingers, like, way of life and Barony's way of life. And, like, we can debate whether that's a good or bad thing, but it's clearly being done in a very wrong way, in a very malicious way, in a very chaotic and just cruel way. And so for Roland to basically say, like, no, we're not going to do that, that's not our fight anymore. We have to go to this tower and fight that instead, which is also crazy because, like, we don't, it's not something you can fight.
Or they don't know that. He doesn't know that at this point. He doesn't know, nobody knows what it is or why.
Yeah.
But it's, this idea of, like, and we find ultimately that going to the tower buys him what? Start over. So not the conclusion he is thinking here.
No.
I also think inside the ball, I was given a choice.
Yeah, and we don't see that.
No.
It's interesting that we don't see that, and we don't see him apparently finding out that their fathers know about the tower, or that that's what is holding them together. So we don't know if that was just like some weird epiphany that he thought of himself while he was in the ball, or if that part of the vision was there while we were seeing what Cuthbert and Elaine were seeing. But regardless, we know that we can't trust anything that we see in this thing. Like, we know that this is not reliable information.
If the ball is giving you a choice, there is definitely darkness and manipulation going on, and it wants you to choose the bad thing. It wants you to choose the wrong way. It wants you to choose the western exit to the thing, if the ball is giving you the choice. And that's the language that he uses here. I think it also kind of just throws the idea of Ka on its head, because the idea of Roland meeting Susan and how Ka like a wind, and the setup of that, and how powerful it can be, and to create what would have been the next generation of gunslingers, because we're with Roland and it's like, he's the last. Well, he chose that.
Yeah.
When given this choice, which makes no sense at all. And it's kind of saying, like, we know that Ka is something that you can't just change, or if you do, there's big consequences to that. So him making this choice directly against all of the actual Ka that has been set up in the world of his friends and his love and the world building and all of that is just like crumpled up into a paper ball. And he's like, nope, this is Ka.
Mm-hmm.
What I see in this dark vision. So I feel like there's something weird going on there too, where it does become what he's doing, but in making that switch, what did he kill off? And it's a lot, and not just Susan, but like his salvation and redemption itself. And he even knows that throughout the series. He's talking about, I'm damned, I'm damned, I'm damned. Like, yeah, you are, but you chose to be damned. And you didn't, poor little kid didn't need to make that choice. He was deceived into it. He was manipulated into it, I think.
Yeah. It's honestly, this is one of the saddest passages to me in the entire series. Seeing, this baby Roland just throwing everything away for the tower. Because, like Eddie said, he's a tower junkie, and this was his first hit.
And it stuck.
Yeah. And,
I mean, really, all is lost. We do see by the end, and we'll see that he does, there is some mercy, and he does get another choice, but we'll get there when we get there. But ultimately, this is a big mistake.
Yeah.
I think that he makes right here.
Yes.
He's completely misguided. He doesn't know that he's being toyed with, manipulated. He doesn't know that this is exactly what the Man in Black wanted him to do. And it just lays out the next 100 or thousands of years of damnation and torture for him. And killing everything and everyone that he loves.
Yeah.
Very sad.
Very sad.
So, this harkens back to the idea that we picked up with Stephen Deschain talking about the Man in Black and the Man in Black's plans for Roland. So, back at the beginning of Wizard and Glass, he has a conversation with his father. And this is what Stephen Deschain says about the Man in Black and going west, and lots of little things in here. So King writes, this is Stephen Deschain talking to Roland. You allowed yourself to be driven by one far slyer than you will ever be in your life. It's only by the grace of the gods and the working of Ka that you have not been sent west. One more true gunslinger out of Martin's Road, out of John Farson's road, and out of the road which leads to the creature that rules them. He stood and held out his arms. If I had lost you, Roland, I should have died. So that's pretty big in everything we've just been talking about, right?
Yeah. I mean, King tells us, this is close to the beginning of the book, that not only is Martin Farr slyer, but is also, like, he's very tricky. He doesn't play fair. And his goal was to get Roland out of his way and out of Farson's way. It didn't work with the, trial of manhood, but I think that it worked here with the grapefruit.
I think so too. All right, so that kind of brings us over to, let's look at, so we looked at the turtle and what we know about what the turtle says and how the turtle talks and the turtle's intentions and the dialect and the flow and the words that he uses, and how none of that is what we see with the voice of the turtle inside of the grapefruit. And this is where we're kind of laying down evidence that it is, the Man in Black is involved here. Yeah. And Stephen King uses direct language, and there's direct parallels between the vision that he got in the grapefruit and the vision that he gets at the end of the Gunslinger. Yes. So we're going to go through that and look at where some of these things are overlapping, if you want
Yes.
to kick us off here.
Yeah, so this is at the end of the Gunslinger during the palaver with the Man in Black and Roland. King writes, "Sleep now," the Man in Black said carelessly, "perchance to dream and that sort of thing." "I'm going to choke you dead," the Gunslinger said. His legs coiled with savage, splendid suddenness, and he flew across the fire at the other. The Man in Black, smiling, swelled in his vision and then retreated down a long and echoing corridor filled with obsidian pylons. The world filled with the sound of sardonic laughter. He was falling, dying, sleeping. He dreamed. The universe was void. Nothing moved. Nothing was. The Gunslinger drifted, bemused. "Let us have light," the voice of the Man in Black said nonchalantly, and there was light. The Gunslinger thought in a detached way that the light was good. And then a little later in the vision, "Let there be light." The voice that cried was no longer that of the Man in Black. It was gigantic, echoing. It filled space and the spaces between spaces. Light! Falling, falling. "No more, please. No more now. No more. Light! No more, please." The voice of the Man in Black whispered silkily in his ear. "Then, Reneg, cast away all thoughts of the tower. Go your way, Gunslinger, and save your soul." He gathered himself, shaken and alone and wrapped in the darkness, terrified of an ultimate meaning rushing at him. He gathered himself and uttered, finally flashing imperative, "No, never." "Then let there be light." And there was light crashing in on him like a hammer, a great and primordial light. In it, consciousness perished, but before it did, the Gunslinger saw something of cosmic importance. He clutched it with an agonized effort and sought himself. He fled the insanity the knowledge implied, and so came back to himself.
A couple of things in here. The first thing I notice is that the Man in Black has the ability to send Roland into not just a vision, but like this visceral, experienced vision that perhaps could kill him.
Yeah.
That is just too much for his mind to take, his consciousness to take. So that feels like he's able to do it here. So why couldn't he do it back in Mayhe's with the Grapefruit?
Right. Yeah, exactly. And you know, we can't know for sure exactly his intentions with this vision and the palaver, but we do know that after the vision, he basically says, like, your dad couldn't have handled this, like the knowledge would have broken him, but it didn't break you, kind of thing. So it's possible that in the same way that we see in the Grapefruit of like attempting to kill him and just get it done and over with, that could have been his goal here. We don't know, and that could also have been just his way to keep Roland, I don't know, questioning, guessing. What do you think?
The beats feel similar in terms of just it's getting rough, it's getting bad. Roland is like, this is really awful.
Mm-hmm.
And the Man in Black is kind of like, well, okay, well then you don't have to. Then, but again, like poking him with a stick to get that same rise out of Roland.
Yes.
No, never. So that's a similar beat. And then instead of "then die," then he says, "then let there be light." But it feels like this is where if he were going to die in this vision, it would have been right here.
Yes. Well, and especially when we see like the light is something where consciousness perishes, you know, and also that the knowledge that he got was like so great that he immediately fled from it, because not doing that would be insanity. Like it would have broken his mind.
That's right. That's right. So he is in there. He somehow saves himself He doesn't have his friends to save him this time, but he's a lot older and wiser, and he's more experienced.
Yeah.
He's been through some shit now, so he can come back to himself, luckily.
Yes.
Anything else before we continue on there?
I don't think so. I mean, I think that we just, just noticing, like you said, beat for beat, we're kind of getting the same thing that we got in the Grapefruit.
We're going to see that. I think we're going to see more of the same beats as we read on for this. Again, we're with the Man in Black in chapter 5 of the Gunslinger. And I think we need to specify that this is because you pulled this from the unrevised Gunslinger. Is that right?
Yes.
Yeah, so let's make that, because there's 2 versions of the Gunslinger, guys, and this is from the unrevised. The revised is pretty similar, so it wasn't a big deal. But just so you know, it might be a little different than what you are reading. Continuing on, so Roland has woken up now from the vision, and they continue to palaver. King writes, "You want the tower?" The Man in Black said. It seemed to be a question. "Yes." "But you shan't have it," the Man in Black said, and smiled with bright cruelty. "I have an idea of how close to the edge that last pushed you. The tower will kill you half a world away." "What did I see?" the Gunslinger asked. "At the end, what was it?" "What did it seem to be?" The Gunslinger was silent, thoughtful. He felt for his tobacco, but there was none. The Man in Black did not offer to refill his poke, either by black magic or white. "There was light," the Gunslinger said finally. "Great white light. And then..." He broke off and stared at the Man in Black. He was leaning forward, and an alien emotion was stamped on his face, writ too large for lies or denial. Wonder. "You don't know," he said, and began to smile. "Oh, great sorcerer who brings the dead to life, you don't know." "I know," the Man in Black said, "but I don't know what." "White light," the Gunslinger repeated, "and then a blade of grass. One single blade of grass that filled everything, and I was tiny, infinitesimal." Grass. The Man in Black closed his eyes. His face looked drawn and haggard. A blade of grass. "Are you sure?" "Yes." The Gunslinger frowned. "But it was purple." And so the Man in Black began to speak. "The universe," he said, "offers a paradox too great for the finite mind to grasp. As the living brain cannot conceive of a non-living brain, although it may think it can, the finite mind cannot grasp the infinite." Okay, a lot of things to pull out there. Where would you like to start?
Well, after saying, like, you want the tower, but you shan't have it, and is smiling with, like, bright cruelty, I feel like that is very similar to what we see from the Grapefruit, where it says something like its doors will be pinned shut against you, and that is sort of where we see the voice turning cruel and hard. So we're seeing that cruelty and that sort of, like, we don't know if it's necessarily like trying to rile him up or just, like, it seems to be that way. It seems like they're basically saying, like, you can try, but you're not going to get there, kind of thing. So very similar.
Yeah, I feel like that's kind of, again, just a very parallel it's not exactly the same, but that would be crazy to have it be exactly the same. But
Right.
we're hitting similar beats here in terms of how this vision goes. And if the man in black is pulling the strings, he's doing it in a similar way. So that makes sense. And again, that idea of cruelty coming into this is key to the man in black. That's what he loves. He loves to be cruel and to jest and joke and laugh at someone else's misfortune, and to have them believe one thing but actually something else is going to happen. That's what he's really good at. He's been doing it for a long time, and we know him well in that role.
Yeah.
The next thing is the idea that he is powerful. He has the power to make these visions, but Todashi visions, happen. But he doesn't have 100% control over what's happening. Perhaps. He knows, but he doesn't know exactly. And I think that could be a parallel going on between both of these visions as well. What do you think?
Yeah, I think that he knew enough to match beat for beat. You know, he knew enough from the grapefruit to be able to match like the Let There Be Light, and you know, some of the other things, sort of going from this like wonder that Roland is feeling to like anger and despair pretty quickly. So he clearly knew some stuff from it. Like he could hit the highlights, but I do think it's interesting that he doesn't know everything that happens in these visions. And he also, like, when he talks about like the finite mind cannot grasp the infinite, it may be the reason that he's not totally sure is because each mind might come up with a different thing that it's seeing when seeing this thing. We see that with it. We see that, you know, with Pennywise, with the Deadlights. We see in its true form, the Losers Club all think kind of like a spider because that is the closest that their brain can get, but they can't truly grasp what it is. And I do wonder if that's a similar idea that we're seeing from the Man in Black, that whoever is looking at the thing, is their mind is going to come up with the best approximation of it, in this case light. And whereas, you know, obviously the Man in Black knew that there was some form of light, but didn't know exactly what all it held or what was leading up to it, where Roland's mind was. So I think that in that way he's sort of just like not sure on the details, even though he is able to match beats.
Yeah, and I mean, like the turtle said, like that's some cosmic shit. Like we're into the actual idea of consciousness and how does it work, and what is life and death, and what is beyond that, and can I kill you if you're not in your body, and like those are huge ideas that the Man in Black has he can get his fingers in there and kind of start making things happen, but maybe cannot fully shape it because of the nature of consciousness, because Roland is his own sovereign being who sees through Roland's lens, and that's something that the Man in Black can grasp but can never fully understand or appreciate, just like we can never fully understand what somebody else's perspective is on a topic. So I feel like he's messing around with forces that are the biggest forces that you can mess around with, and we know that he doesn't truly appreciate the consequences of that, and he doesn't fully understand it himself, and that's dangerous.
Very dangerous. You know, it's both of them. It is hubris, which, you know, is sort of the downfall of both of these characters, you know, honestly, is they think that they understand more than they do. And, you know, as we get to the end of the series, I really do think that this is why both Roland, is being punished by the loop for abandoning Susan and going west, and, the man in black seems to also be stuck in this loop, and I do think that it is potentially because he is messing with Ka this way, and doesn't quite understand the forces he's messing with in terms of the Dark Tower and the Grapefruit.
There's a parallel here in, I feel like it's a similar idea that King uses in 11/22/63, where, I guess kind of spoilers, but I'm not going to go into detail here, but the idea that when you mess with the past, when you change Ka, what was supposed to happen, the universe, again, doesn't like that. Mm-mm. And there will be consequences, and they are not good. They are it's very hard to change the will of Gan, of Ka. And when you do, shit starts to go wrong pretty quickly and snowball up and turns into a disaster. So I feel like that's a similar idea we're toying with here.
Definitely.
All right, so we're going to talk about when he gets to the tower at the end of the series. And this idea that we see in the Grapefruit, where this switch is flipped onto Roland in terms of, this belongs to me. This is mine, and I will have you. I'm going to take you by force. And he says a similar kind of thing at the end of Book 7 when he arrives there. And King writes, Roland began to cry the names of his friends and loved ones and commates. Those names carried clear in that strange air, as if they would echo forever. I am Roland of Gilead, and I come as myself. You will open to me. So what do you get there, apart from just the parallel from what we saw in the Grapefruit?
I think that this also shows the sort of thrall that the Grapefruit has on the people that it touches in this way. Obviously, like with Rhea and Jonas, they were not sent into the Pink Storm, right? They were watching and using the Grapefruit, but they didn't have exactly the same experience as Roland. However, this kind of possessiveness over something unpossessable is something that we do see from all three of them. And I do think that this is a consequence of his time in the Grapefruit. I think that this is showing that sort of corruption of his soul in that way.
Right, because they get to this idea of mine.
Mm-hmm.
And Jonas is saying, when he's, or Rhea is saying, when Jonas is trying to take it from her, she says, I'll smash it to the ground before I give it up to the likes of you.
Mm-hmm.
And then Jonas gets it.
Mm-hmm.
And King writes, his mind was a white explosion of exultation. For the first time in his long professional life, he forgot his job, his surroundings, and the 6,000 things that could get him killed on any day. He had it. He had it. By all the graves of all the gods, he had the fucking thing. Mine, he thought. And that was all. So the Grapefruit brings this greed into the heart of whoever is holding it. And this is not a small thing we're being told about Jonas, because he is a formidable foe. He is a gunslinger, a failed gunslinger, but to say, like, he forgets everything else, his job, his surroundings, how he's going to get killed, that's really big news for a gunslinger, for something to just completely wipe that from their minds.
Yeah.
But it happened to Roland, where everything that has been going on, that he's been seeing and assessing and feeling and paying attention and loving, just wiped in one instant from his mind. So a similar thing there.
And it is the downfall of all three of them, in different ways, but Rhea's life force was all but like sucked out of her by the end of this. She was like basically a living corpse, you know. And Jonas, he dies that day. And we, you know, we can't say for sure, but it seems like this corruption of the grapefruit might have been the reason, or a reason, you know. And, you know, we see the same with Roland, this sort of possessiveness, even though he doesn't necessarily have it over the grapefruit. He has it towards the tower, and that's the reason that he's in this cycle to begin with, is this drive, this, you know, believing that he can possess something like this. It's very similar, you know, we know that King loves Tolkien. It's very similar to the One Ring. And it's, we also don't know, I think it is interesting, we're not sure how much the tower and the grapefruit can connect. Like, we don't know exactly. We know that they are two entities. We know at the end of the series, we find out that the tower is not just a building, but it's like a sentient, it's not a construct, it is a living thing. And we don't necessarily see it enact its will the way that we do with the grapefruit, but I do wonder if there is some sort of communication or something going on between them, because it seems like the sort of possessiveness that Rhea and Jonas had over the grapefruit is the same sort of thing that Roland has over the tower.
And he does have it over the grapefruit. I haven't read it in a while, and we didn't pull it for this episode, but he does remark about how it's hard for him. They bring it back to Gilead, and he needs to give it to his dad or the Gunslingers, and he doesn't for a minute.
Yeah.
I think he keeps it for a second.
Yeah. He doesn't want to. And I think even his father may have known that and like was waiting for him to give it to him. But yeah, regardless, you're right. He does have that. And I think if it weren't for his friends, he would have gone down the same direction.
Yeah. And so we do get to the tower, and we're going to read through the coda where he goes into the tower, and the tower does have its way with him ultimately. And we do hear the voice of the tower in this excerpt, so we can think about that, and we're going to pay attention to the idea of how Mahis and the grapefruit is referenced here in so many words.
Yeah.
All right, and this is kind of long, but y'all are here for this, right? King writes, he grasped the knob. It was engraved with a wild rose wound around a revolver, one of those great old guns from his father, and now lost forever. Yet it will be yours again, whispered the voice of the tower and the voice of the roses. These voices were now one. What do you mean? To this there was no answer, but the knob turned beneath his hand, and perhaps that was an answer. Roland opened the door at the top of the dark tower. He saw and understood at once, the knowledge falling upon him in a hammer blow, hot as the sun of the desert that was the apotheosis of all deserts. How many times had he climbed these stairs only to find himself peeled back, curved back, turned back, not to the beginning, when things might have been changed and time's curse lifted, but to that moment in the Mohaine Desert when he had finally understood that this thoughtless, questionless quest would ultimately succeed. How many times would he travel it? Oh no, he screamed, please, not again, have pity, have mercy. The hands pulled him forward regardless. The hands of the tower knew no mercy. They were the hands of Gan, and they knew no mercy. He smelled alkali, bitter as tears. The desert beyond the door was white, blinding, waterless, without feature save for the faint cloudy haze of the mountains, which sketched themselves on the horizon. The smell beneath the alkali was that of the devil grass, which brought sweet dreams, nightmares, death. But not for you, Gunslinger. Never for you. You darkle, you tinct. May I be brutally frank? You go on. And each time you forget the last time. For you, each time is the first time. He made one final effort to draw back. Hopeless. Ka was stronger. Roland of Gilead walked through the last door, the one he always sought, the one he always found. It closed gently behind him. And perhaps this time, if you get there, it will be different. A voice whispered, surely the voice of desert delirium. For what other time had there ever been? He was what he was, and where he was, just that, no more than that, no more. This is your sigil, whispered the fading voice that bore with it the dusk-sweet scent of roses, the scent of home on a summer evening. Oh, lost, a stone, a rose, an unfound door, a stone, a rose, a door. This is your promise that things may be different, Roland, that there may yet be rest, even salvation. A pause, and then, if you stand, if you are true. Holy shit. Okay. How about, let's start to, I think the main thing I want to pull out here is, I mean, there's a ton of things, but what about not to the beginning when things might have been changed and time's curse listed? Because I think we're talking about the grapefruit there.
I think so too.
Would you agree?
Yeah, I think that the grapefruit is what sort of damned both Roland and the Man in Black into this time loop. Both the Man in Black messing with this and giving Roland this vision, but then Roland, crying off everything except for the tower. And so it's interesting that they can't go back to there, but have to go back to this area that's right before he meets Jake, which is, pretty good evidence for why we think Jake, and the salvation of Jake is what Roland needs to, redeem himself, as if he doesn't let Jake fall, then he can break this loop. Because otherwise it doesn't really make sense to just go back to here. I do wonder why he can't go all the way back, but I do think that it's just like Ka or Gan basically saying like, you made your choice and this caused untold destruction of untold worlds. And it says that there is no mercy, but I do think that there is some mercy in that Roland is given the chance to try again. And it seems like hopefully he's learning as he goes, and hopefully he will eventually be able to break it.
It is a big question. Why can't we go back to the beginning? But I think to me that's a truth here. He's not going back he's not put back to the beginning, which I do think is that moment in the grapefruit, that choice he makes. Mm-hmm. But that just must speak to how significant this was, how damning that was for him to just divert Ka like a wind, to just divert it and switch his brain into kind of focusing on the darkness and rejecting the light. He fucked up really, really bad. And I think this is kind of telling us that there's just some things you can't take back. I do agree that there is some mercy here. And it's interesting how he says, it's not back to the beginning. It's back to that moment when he knew his quest would succeed. That moment, we know, if we think about it, what we're told here, if we're to believe that this is what happens every time, that moment is right before he meets Jake. And King does a lot of work to set up Jake as a twinner to Susan in a lot of ways. And the way that they meet, in the way that Jake is portrayed, in the way that they even look physically, and then that choice that is made with Jake. And I call Jake Susan 2.0 because I feel like there is a very strong parallel that's drawn there. So I don't think that's a mistake to say he messed up with Susan. He's getting a second chance here with just another version of the same thing. Of course, in the cycle that we read, he fails that test as well. But hope for salvation,
yes,
is conveyed here.
Yeah. I do also find it interesting that, okay, so like before the coda, we're basically told like, hey readers, if you read this, it's gonna suck. Like, it's not a happy ending. But this is what happened, or you can close the book and be done with him reaching the tower, right? I feel like this is almost our version of the grapefruit in our world. Is we didn't look away and now we're seeing this awful thing. Because it is awful. I mean, it's, you know, the horror of Roland having to, like, realizing that he has to do everything all over again because he failed once again. And then as soon as he gets that realization, he's thrown back into it.
He makes a choice, and we make a choice, and our choice is for darkness in some ways. I mean, you can't not choose that,
right.
But that's us choosing to read is what keeps Roland in the loop. And there's a lot of theories that we'll have to make episodes at some point about the theory that the storytelling and stories and the reader itself, we're the ones that are keeping Roland locked in the cycle. And we go back to the Gunslinger because that's what we do, and we do. I've done it several times, so I'm part of the problem, not the solution for Roland.
I do also want to say, so we get a lot of different sort of voices here. We hear the voice of the tower, which is now the voice of the roses as well. Then we hear what we assume might be Gan. We hear something that sounds almost like the Man in Black with the darkle and tanked, like, and then we get again what seems like roses right as he re-enters this desert. It depends on how you read it, and I think that it is vague on purpose, that these could all be the same entity, or they could all be differing voices, or they could be in Roland's head, like we don't know exactly, but I do find it interesting that we're hearing all of these different voices. I do wonder if the voice that he hears at the very, very end, the "if you stand, if you are true," is the actual voice of the turtle. Because he tells Bill almost the exact same thing. Like, if you, can stand and are true and are brave, you can fight this thing. And I do wonder if that very last voice, if they are different voices, then that very last voice might be the actual voice of the turtle as opposed to the grapefruit.
Yeah, that's a good guess, and it does come after we've been told that there is no mercy here. But then this is obviously mercy and the hope of salvation, without intervention. There's no intervention here besides giving Roland the horn, but his memory is still wiped when he realizes where he's at and all of that. So there's no intervention, but there is, it's not completely cruelty. I think it is interesting to look at the voice of the tower, the voice of the roses, and then we're told a voice whispered.
Yes.
So I think there's something to what you're saying in terms of like, well, whose voice is that and who does that match up with? And it does match up with our ideas of the turtle. But they are slightly different. I think we could also kind of conjecture about, are these all external, or are these internal
Yeah.
voices of consciousness or archetypes? And the idea that because Roland, he lets Jake drop,
Yeah.
and then he does a lot of acts of redemption,
Mm-hmm.
especially in book 7, that could be reflecting back that idea of mercy, of stand and be true, and
Mm-hmm.
things could be different. He's hearing that voice now because he put that out into his world. So there's a part of him now that's been activated to
Yeah.
do the right thing.
Yeah. And I mean, that is also a really good guess, because we do see that throughout the series. Roland's consciousness often talks to him in voices from his past, like with Court, his who taught him how to fight, and his father, his mother, rarely, I think a couple times though, and like we do get it basically from all of these long past people. So it is definitely quite possible that all of these voices are just coming from within himself, including the voice that sounds like the Man in Black, because we have seen that specifically, in the drawing of the 3, when he assumes that the Man in Black is dead. The only appearance that character makes in the drawing of the 3 is inside Roland's head.
Yeah, and language from the palaver that they have is directly. I mean, it sounds like the Man in Black, beat for beat here, but not for you, Gunslinger. That's exactly what he says at the palaver. Never for you. You darkle, you tinct. He says he darkles, he tinks when we're talking about the ageless stranger. Guys, we have a whole episode about this bit because that's big.
Yeah.
Talking about the ageless stranger as he darkles, he tinkt, and then now at the end, you darkle, you tinkt. But those are coming from the mouth of the Man in Black. May I be brutally frank? Yeah. That also sounds like the Man in Black. That's the way he talks. That's the way that he comes across. So, like, what is he doing here? And is he actually involved here? We know that he is looping as well. So would it be fair to say that part of him is involved here in this regeneration? Is it just Roland? Is this the voice of the tower? That doesn't feel quite right to me, given all the hints we have about the Man in Black and how he speaks. It's too... I think King is being very overt here with, like, listen.
Yes.
Does this sound familiar to y'all? It should.
Definitely. And I also think, this talks about the hands of Gan having no mercy, which again we kind of disagree with, but that's Roland's interpretation of it. We can say, that there's probably people that are saying, okay, so this is the voice of Gan, and if we're seeing the voice of Gan here, maybe that was in some of the previous visions as well. But I just don't think that we would see Gan in such dark visions, especially in the Grapefruit. I don't think that. I think that if we did see something representing Gan in the Grapefruit, it would be the same way that Roland assumed that it was the turtle when it was clearly not the turtle. And again, like, same with the Man in Black, the vision from the Man in Black. I just don't think that it would be something like actually divinely sent. I think that he was shown specific things for a specific reason. Just to like throw that out there, because I mean, I feel like that is an argument that people could make.
I think another way we could think about it too is the hands of Gan knew no mercy. And again, kind of hearkening back to it, which I haven't read in a long time, or a couple years, but if Gan, so in it we have like the turtle and we have Pennywise, but then we have that overarching force. And saying that, that's Gan, and that's to say there's no mercy, but it's impersonal. It's just like that's just showbiz, baby. Like this is what has to happen. It's not about mercy or forgiveness. It's like this is what's happening. So it's not like we're being mean. It's just like, this is your now. You chose it. Here we are. It's happening. But then we have we have the turtle and Pennywise, or forces of evil, which the Man in Black very well could be wrapped up in.
Yeah.
And when we really think about it, we could say, what's all with all the light in the light that's hurting people in these visions and maybe making them insane? Because that sounds a lot like the deadlights to
Mm-hmm.
me. So to say we could have the voice of the turtle as being like the force of good, it's not going to intervene, but it could give you some cheerleading and say you can do this, just
Mm-hmm.
like it did with Bill. And to say we could have the voice of the darkness saying, not for you, never for you. It feels like those two things could coexist. If they're going to coexist anywhere under Gan, it's going to be
The
at
tower.
this part in the book, right?
Yeah, I agree. Because we do have the turtle as the force for good, and it as the force of evil, and then Gan is sort of seen as the thing that created those two, and then out of that is how our sort of universe was created. So like there's our universe, our levels of the tower, however you want to say it, and then the macroverse, which contains the turtle and it or whatever forces of good and evil that are like cosmic in nature. And then beyond that level is Gan, who is sort of like, just like you said, just sort of like, well, this is the course of things, and seems to be more neutral.
Yeah. I mean, so much we could talk about here. We're going to wrap it up in a few minutes, but
Mm-hmm.
just to throw one more piece of wood on that fire, the voice of the tower and the voice of the roses, these voices were now one. And we're told that after it says, yet it will be yours again. And King makes a point to say, tower and rose are now one voice. And I think that we could get into like the dark tower. Were we expecting live, laugh, love posted up in the dark tower? I wasn't. I keep saying, why the fuck are we going to the dark tower? I don't want to go there. The voice of the rose, which we are seen as this holy religious experience that's just the most beautiful thing that brings you to your knees weeping. And then we look at, he combined those two things in that phrase, yet it will be yours again. Yes, it sucks. And he's like, God damn it, not this again. Also, this is his chance for salvation.
Yep.
So it is both things in
Yep.
one, oddly enough, where unless he does it again, he can't fix
Mm-hmm.
it. So yeah, it's bad. It'll be yours again. Uh-oh. But also good. We want him to succeed, and he needs to be reset for that to happen. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. And I mean, I think that's the whole thing, is like, as we're reading and we're getting to the tower, we're like, oh my god, like, you're sacrificing people again. Like, you have grown, you clearly love these people, and yet you're sacrificing them anyway. Like, what is happening? And so we sort of see him reverting to his old ways as he's like going through the tower, especially when he gets there and he's like, okay, I'm entering now, like, whether you like it or not, kind of thing. So just like, I think that this is also, it's hope for Roland, but it's also hope for the reader that, like, maybe next time everybody doesn't have to die. Maybe next time they're able to actually succeed in a way that isn't sacrificing everything and everyone he loves again.
This could just probably be its own episode about the
Mm-hmm.
ending of the book, but it does relate back to that grapefruit in terms of like, how did this all start? Why is it ending this way? We think that the
Yeah.
grapefruit played a pivotal. It was the linchpin for all of what we're reading here,
Yep.
and it does happen square in the middle of the series. So
Yep.
I think the actual linchpin of the series, in terms of the novels
Yeah.
and in terms of the events that happened there, are critical to everything that Roland becomes and what happens when he actually gets to the tower.
Yeah, absolutely. And especially because, like, his time in Mehis is his beginning as a gunslinger, And then when it's saying, like, you can't go back to the beginning, that's sort of like, this is our sort of chronological beginning for Roland as a man, as a gunslinger in his own right. And it's also like, we can't say that, I don't think that the grapefruit is causing the loop. It's not that, but I do think that the grapefruit and Roland and the Man in Black's workings with it are why they are now looping.
I agree. I agree. It started the whole thing, and that's why it's this pivotal moment that was a real fuck up.
Yeah.
You fucked up, Roland,
Yeah.
and that was the beginning of it. And you have chances to redeem yourself, but still missing the mark. But not next time. Next time's going to be different. Amazing. I think we nailed that. Any last thoughts before we wrap up?
I don't think so. I think that we should do a video maybe on the macroverse in general and how it relates, but yeah, that's an entirely other thing.
Yeah, stay tuned for that, everybody. We'll do that because I think we pulled out some cool things there. What do you think? Have we convinced you? It sounded crazy at first that it wasn't the turtle. That's not what happened. But I think we had some pretty solid points on our debate team argument. So let us know what you think. Do you agree? Are you still with us? Thank you for listening. We love you guys. Please share the show with other people who want to go insane for the Dark Tower, who are complete tower junkies like Roland and ourselves. And we hope to see you again real soon. Until we see you again, please have long days and pleasant nights. Bye.